Hi, and welcome to Klevu's Web Components live Q&A with Juha-Pekka Rajaniemi and Juan Pena. I want to welcome you today and invite you to write any comments or questions in the comments boxes on LinkedIn. And we will either answer them live or we will get to them at the end. Juha and Juan, can you briefly introduce yourself, please?
Hello, my name is Juha-Pekka Rajaniemi, as Rachel just told. I'm a software entrepreneur, I would call myself. I have been working in the web technologies for the last 20 years. I'm always up for creating something new and exciting. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today, is the one exciting technology that's lately coming up, which is called the web components. Let's continue that later on, but Juan, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Juan Pena. I'm a software developer, support. I've been in e-commerce also for about 20 years, web development as well. And I'm happy to be here and explore these web components.
Awesome. We have about an hour today. Juha, what is in store? What's the agenda?
So today's agenda, I'm going to make a small presentation, a few slides about the web components. It's actually a presentation I had in our Discovered event in London a few weeks ago, really short version of that. And then we're going to go into live coding with our web components. And hopefully it goes better than the last time it was live coding with Klevu, which was 1 hour of debugging things. So hopefully we are in a better place this time.
Wishing you luck.
Yes, thank you.
It's always kind of a little bit more fun when things go wrong, though, to watch you kind of fix it, and that can be its own lesson in itself, but hopefully not today.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully not.
We're using a new live streaming platform. I actually don't know how to kind of like minimize my own video, so I'm going to kind of stay on, but I might be like typing and replying to comments and finding questions and stuff. So just kind of ignore me on the screen. But I'm going to pass over to you, Juha. Would you like me to share your slides?
Yes, please. So I'm going to present you lightning fast web components, how to make discovery experience lightning fast. So I'm going to start the presentation a little bit about numbers. We did a survey a while back about what's the current state of the headless technologies. And quite many people are saying that, yes, they are already in the headless development. It's the mainstream nowadays. And quite many people are planning on investing more in the headless technologies. But still, just 34% are planning to invest. So we were trying to figure out what's the reasoning. But it looks like there is lots of interest in the headless. Almost 70% has implemented headless 2 years ago already. And almost 80% are planning to do it in the next 2 years. So it's really relevant for the current climate of e-commerce still, even though everyone is talking about the AI stuff and everything will be automated and so on, but still this is the right now, not the future, but right now technology. But in the previous slide, it was just 34% were going to invest in the headless technology. So we were asking, what's the reason for that? And the biggest reason we found from the survey was that there is no templates, no ready-made themes that you can install. It's essentially a headless where you build everything by yourself. You have a system that you create everything visible you create yourself. You don't have that much ready-made things. Of course, there's libraries like Vue Storefront and other platforms and frameworks that you can use to bootstrap your project into quite far, but still it's something that's missing. But the industry has already a solution. I already told you one, which is the Vue Storefront. So it's a components. the small piece of functionality in the form of a component that's usually created in React, Angular, Vue, or whatever framework in the front end. And when we're creating websites nowadays, of course we use the components in all the places. In the applications, we design by the components, we create design systems from these components, we test the systems by the components from these small pieces. And the thing is that almost everyone has their own already. Google has the material design, they have their own components. There is a very known React material framework that just creates these components that are based on the Google's design. And almost, if you're a slightly bigger company, you have your own component system, own framework, what you're going to use to create the websites. It's a really industry standard right now. It's a fast way of creating websites. But there is a problems with this framework-specific components. When the developers create those components in the specific frameworks, they work only in the chosen framework. So there's always, when you start a new project, there's a long discussion that, okay, which framework we're going to use? Should we use a React or the Vue, or should we do it in Angular or something new coming up like Lit or Quick or whatever framework there is? But there is still inherent problem that when you start coding, when you choose the library and start coding for it, they always have a lifespan. React has been for quite a long time now, more than about 10 years almost. Well, not that long, 7-8 years, but still a long time. But now we're actually reading the Twitter, we are starting to see that the people are turning away from it with the other frameworks that are slightly more slighter. And it means that all the code that we have created for React is starting to die now. And of course, there is always a change between the versions. Especially, I remember when the Angular version 4 came, and then you have the 5 and 6. It was a huge pain to change all the components between this when the upgrade was done between the major versions, and you had lots of things breaking in backwards way. And then even the Angular, they created their own system to automatically migrate the code, but still there is problems, and it was a pain. It was a pain. And then there is the thing of styling and customization. There are so many different libraries and ways to style your components in the different frameworks. And when the developer comes, they usually have to learn the own way of that, how that framework uses it, or how the developer in that project have chosen, what kind of styling framework they have chosen to style the components and things. But we have a technology that helps to solve this problem, and it's called the web components. It's an industry standard, so it's part of the W3C organization, the standards organization, that they are creating a component standard. So it means that all the browsers support these web components directly without any framework. It's like writing a components directly to the browser instead of the framework. And it has been coming along quite a long time now. So all the main browsers support it right now. So it's over 95% support in the browsers. It has been building up. Everyone is talking about it. Yes, this is the thing that we should be using, but still there's something, little things that are preventing us from starting. But I think now it's a time. And I think it's going to have as huge effect on the e-commerce industry as the BWAs were. So that's just another browser standard that came years back. Now everyone, when they're building the e-commerce site, they need to have the BWA. It's because it's better, it's faster. It gives you everything what you need, creating a good website. And the last point, there is just one way of creating styles in these web components. So what else in the web components? They're the same way, small piece of functionality as the framework components. It's easy to combine with other places. It's just HTML, JS. So it works in any place where HTML and JavaScript works if the browser supports this technology. There is just the styling of the components when you're using if someone else creates a component and you're styling it, there's just few ways of modifying the look and feel of the components. And there is CSS properties, slots, and this part selector in the CSS. And like I said, it works directly almost all the frameworks. So you just import the web component code, and you can use it directly inside of your framework. Right now, the situation is that it supports every framework except React. But I think it's in the backlog of version 19. That's the next version of React that should work. So that's coming. That should be the solution for that too. So what we're doing our own Klevu web components. So combining all this information where the industry is going, the Klevu is doing discovery. So we're doing search, merchandising, and recommendations applications. And we thought, okay, we need to create our own web components that solve just this part of it. So going with the true composable headless front-end systems, we're just providing the parts that we are offering. So you could easily plug and play it into the framework that you're using or the site that you're building with these components. So how it helps you to create? Well, build faster. We have already created components. You don't have to build everything from the scratch. If you're using Klevu SDK, you're building everything from the scratch. You're making the inputs, you're making the logic, you're making everything. But you can easily copy paste the small snippets of HTML basically to start with the web components. But it's not just big applications. It's component library. So you could even use a button, a small piece of application from the web component project. Think about it. If you're an agency, you have lots of different clients, and you might even use different tech stacks between the different clients. The web components, because they work with all the places, it's a single code that you can use in all of these clients. You don't have to learn a new way or use a different library to inject the discovery features into your site. There's lots of possibilities to modify the styles. And the generic library, there is a generic library for everyone to use in all the frameworks. But because the React is missing the support for web components at this point, we have a React-specific library that wraps the components into React code, so you can use them with the React too. So the React framework is not a problem right now. So it's all available in the webcomponents.klevu.com. And the idea was that now we go into the live coding, actually doing a website with these components. And hopefully we get something out of this exercise. So that's the presentation going into the site. So the webcomponents.klevu.com, it's here, it's this kind of website. And it's a storybook. It's a documentation storybook telling everything about the web components. And my idea is that we create a simple HTML website out of this with these web components. Mm-hmm. And after that, I was thinking maybe we could create also a React site. As you can already see in my screen that I have installed the React and into my project. So this is a really empty project here.
Yeah. Juha, if you don't mind, I just wanted to jump in to just throw something out there. A lot of times when I've thought about web components, when I've had conversations with web components with people and developers, a lot of times we're thinking of like the user interface and we're thinking of functionality. So something like a slider, a library of web components that does a slider or something like that. One thing that I think is really special about this particular library of web components from Klevu is that it actually does the communication with Klevu. So when you have a Klevu account, these web components aren't just a way to display it. They also have under the hood what it takes to get the information to display, um,
Yeah.
which is like crucially important. And it's part of the reason why, at least what I've heard and what I've seen, is this is why these web components exist. Customers are asking for, hey, I want to be able to do, this composable thing that web components do, but I have to do the plumbing of making the requests, getting the response, formatting the data, then passing it over to these components that will display it. This is kind of doing it all at the same time. So when
Yeah.
so anyway,
Exactly.
I just wanted to kind of
Exactly.
put up, yeah.
Yeah, that's the goal of this project. And I also like the idea of that we have created these components that you can choose the smaller pieces. You don't have to take the full solution and start using that and start modifying that. You can start taking the smaller pieces of functionality. What we can see here in the documentation page that there is, it's put in a bucket called, I think it was Brad Frost that coined this idea of atoms, components, molecules, and applications kind of thing. So with that ideology, we have created buckets of different kind of components. And here we can see on the left side of the site there what kind of components we have. Each of these are a single web component, so you can use any of them. And exactly that idea. There in the bottom, you have the full application that does all the communication. You don't have to do anything. You just insert this small piece of code, start using it. Of course, it has this set look and feel, what we have designed. But if you want to make any modifications, you don't have to go into modifying the application, but you can just choose these smaller pieces, like taking the facet list or taking the slider or creating a product crate from the smaller pieces. And then you can even put your own code in between. You don't have to use our components. You can mix and match. That's the beauty of the whole thing.
Nice.
So how about we create this application, like really simple application where everything should be working.
Cool.
Like, let's start with merchandising. So merchandising is the product grid page, or the page where we list the one category products, and it's merchandised into a certain order. So we have, when we click into the merchandising application, we can see the preview right here. And let's see if we can create this page. Let's see if I can reduce the size a little bit so it's showing a couple lines of products here. There we go.
I noticed that it already adjusted. Like at first it was showing me one column of products, and when you made it smaller, it showed me two.
Yeah, so all the components are responsive from the get-go, so you don't have to do anything. It should work in a mobile and it should work in a desktop sizes, like every responsive website works. And here's an example that really already works. It's a fully working application. We can set the sizes and the colors. We can set the price to remove some of the products and so on.
Show me the code. I can feel everybody thinking it. Show me the code.
There is a show code button here in the bottom of the example. So when we click that, that's yes, this is the code for the component. So you can see it's HTML with the three attributes, but that's not all. So we need a little bit more, but let's start doing it. Let's try to make this merchandising page with women's products. So if we go in the top of the page, there is a guides section. Go in the installation. It's telling us the different ways to start using the components. So there is the installation through a CDN, so you don't even need to install npm packages or anything, even though I have installed him here in my local environment. But I think we should start with the npm version. So how do you do it? You npm install Klevu UI. I have done it. It's here in my npm package. And I have a byte in my project because I want to make this as simple as possible. So let's start programming. It's telling me that let's create an index.html. So create that one. Create the basic website. Let's give it a title. Let's create a hello world. And to see that our compilation is working, let's start the byte on the project. And then we should be seeing hello world. Yay, let's increase the size a little to see that, yes, it says hello world here. So what next? It's saying that we need to insert the script tag for the components, yes. And we needed a style. So let's add those into the head. There we go. And then it's already telling that, okay, we should try it out with the API key with this 2 components. So Klevu unit, and it's telling us to use the Klevu quick search. Well, let's try it out. Let's copy paste it to here. So it's here in the project. Let's hide that. We can see the more code. So we have a Klevu init HTML still. It's plain HTML with the API key and the URL. And these are something you get from the KMC or Klevu Motion Center, depending on your project. So if you save the page, we have the first component in the screen. Okay, now it's too huge. Let's reduce the size. There, okay, we are getting a demo effect, a problem here.
Out of curiosity, if you reset the size back to like 0 in the browser,
and maybe refresh the page, yeah, then we got that.
Yeah,
right.
So it's the fact that you're zooming in. Okay.
Yes. So I think it's by the refresh. So let's try red shoes under 100. Yay. So it's showing some results from the store that we are showing in the documentation.
So hold on, just before we continue, before we go any deeper. So you started a nothing document, like that's just a plain HTML document. You made sure that you did the npm install, and that's where you got that Klevu core from. And then you copied and copied and pasted the script, which loads what you npm installed. So it's coming from that nodes module. And then you've got the styles, which is that CSS file.
Yep.
And then you copied and pasted. Those are the web components. If you scroll over, so that Klevu init is a web component. That is a web component.
Yeah, it's a single web component that initialized the project with the correct API key so that our components can use them. Of course, we could use some of the other components here. Let's show even better, like a component that doesn't use anything, a button.
Okay.
So if there we go, we have a button here. Now it's the button that we have designed for this library.
Okay.
But let's go back. This is more complicated example when we're initializing with the one component and
gotcha. Yeah. And quick search, that Klevu quick search, that's not an atom. That's not, just a basic building block. That's an app. That's like the biggest version of the web components because it's got all the things in it. Got it.
Yeah, it has everything in it. So it's built from the smaller pieces. So it's made from the input buttons and querying the data and so on. So if we go in further, I said that we want to create the merchandising. Yes. So let's go here. But the thing is that I have to cheat. I have a special for cheating because I forgot the API key. I need to change the API key for our project.
Okay.
Yeah, just I cannot remember the API key of the project, and if I remember right, it was 29. I'm gonna change the service to the same example as here in the web component example. It's a different project, so it's different. Different place. So let's try that we just copy paste this code from here now into this one. Press save. Let's see what happens. Oh, we have a merchandising website. Let's reduce the size again so we can see something. It's the full merchandising page.
Wow.
We like just really expensive dresses. There we go.
And so I see that in this particular web component, you are passing some extra info. So you're telling it, hey, I want the women's category and I want the title to be this, and I want to limit the number of responses, the number of products that I'm looking at to 24.
Yeah, so we can change. Let's say that we want to limit to 2 products. Now we have 2 products here. What are these attributes? How we can change them? Okay, let's go and see the documentation once again. So here in the top, there is a canvas tab.
Okay.
When we click here, we can see all the controls of this component. So there is attributes and the properties here in the controls. The attributes are something you can set with the HTML, and the properties are something you have to use JavaScript.
Nice.
Because attributes can be only strings, but
right.
if you want to give something more complicated, then you have to use the properties to set things. But let's say that what kind of things we have here is like use pagination. Okay, let's try it out. That we use a pagination in the example. Let's go to the example so we can see what happens when we use the pagination. There we go. The load more changed in the pagination, and it has the right amount of pages here. And if we change the limit back to something more sane, like 12,
it won't be 900 something pages.
Yeah. So now it's 160 pages.
Absolutely. And because of the way web components work, that number could be pulled from anywhere, right? Like I could have, if I had, for whatever reason, some kind of in my admin, I've got profile settings for this account. So I'm logged in as the user. I can set my preference to be, I want my limit to be 36, products per page, and then dynamically pull that in when I'm, as the user, logged in as me, and it knows that my personal preference is 36 products, that it doesn't default me to the 12, but it'll pull in my 36 without me having to adjust that each time I come to the website.
Yeah, or you can save it into local storage in your browser, like your own local settings. You can set it that, okay, every time the user comes, we load from the local storage that the limit is 24 for this person. And you can create your own separate component that changes that value. Usually, there is this drop down to change the amount of products in the screen. But as you can see, our components, they're not ready, not there yet. They're already usable. You can try them out. But I don't suggest using them in the production just right now, just yet, but soon, really soon. But now it's in place that you can try it out. Try it out how it feels like creating Klevu with these components. But we're working really hard to get all the features to this application, so you don't have to start creating a custom solution straight away. But there's still small things missing, like the amount of products in the screen.
Got it. Yeah.
Quick question, Juha. If someone does try it out, how's the best way to get in touch with you and Juan if they had questions?
I think the best way is to contact our support from there. And also there is a GitHub page. Yeah, that's really important. I have the link here in my browser right away. This is the place. It's the whole thing is fully open source. You can see all the code, everything done in this project. So it's a Klevu Ltd front-end SDK. So it's a monorepo with our SDK and the web components in the one place. So there's issues. You can start talking, ask questions, and there's a lot of questions already related to the SDK, but also web components. Here's the place, and you can even make changes if you feel like the components needs to improve. You want to improve, for example, the accessibility of component. You can do it. Make a pull request. We will most probably approve it.
Gotcha.
Okay. So let's say, how about we do an example how to create something similar without the big component.
Okay.
So let's remove the Klevu the full application. There is this one special non-component in the documentation called a query that you can use to query data from a Klevu easily.
Okay.
So I'm gonna use it. Here's an example. Gonna copy paste this just to see how it works. So we save it. We don't see anything because it happens in the background. So let's open let's move it. Oh, not that direction, but here in the bottom. Let's increase the size that everyone can see what's happening. When we refresh, let's put only the XXR. We can see that there is one request which is to our search server. Let's see what it does. It does a search to our server with a setting of hoodie term. And the preview of the response, we're getting data from that. So it's returning all the hoodies in the request. So we have the data here. So how do we get?
I'm used to looking at this. This is all available in the Klevu documentation on the API side.
Yeah.
So all this request and the response is fully documented as far as how you would do it. But the web component did it. Just that Klevu query made that type of request.
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah. So you don't have to write the JavaScript to fetch the data.
Right.
It does all the magic for you. But how do we get the data to somewhere else? Well, the magic is called JavaScript. So let's write the JavaScript. Let's first give it this ID, like query.
Okay.
Or the query. So let's take the query element with the plain. I have as you can see, I have a GitHub Copilot already writing me with an AI the code.
It's cheating.
It's cheating.
Though. That's amazing.
Yeah, just let's click this tab.
Okay.
Yeah, it almost did the whole thing, but I know that this even name is wrong. So AI isn't perfect. So let's go to the documentation, and it's telling you there is an event that there is a Klevu query result named event. So let's fetch that one.
This is plain JavaScript.
Plain
JavaScript.
JavaScript.
Nothing special. This is interesting. All right.
Yeah. So let's save it. We run it already. It did the search again, but we should have a console log of the result. So yeah.
Wow.
So it's basic HTML DOM events. So what the HTML supports? Absolutely most basic DOM events. We're listening for a Klevu query results, and we are getting the result, and we can do anything with the data. So then it's just plain JavaScript what we're writing right now here. But let's see what's the data. So we have an object that has a result and a records. The records has the interesting parts. Everything else is not so interesting. But there is some functions. If you're using an SDK, then you can use the same functions as an SDK, like getting the next page from the result, or implementing analytical events. It's all the same as in the SDK, and the SDK documentation tells you how to make these a little bit more complicated business logics simply with the SDK.
And question, is that because I'm still dealing with that web, the query, the Klevu query web component? Like that's what I got from the DOM when I said the document.get the element by its ID, and I gave it that ID. That's the reason why I've got that extra function. Yeah, because that's not like data that came back. That's functionality. Like that's
that's functionality. So
that's code.
The reason that's the reason why it's there. It's because the SDK has been baked into the components.
And it makes it functional.
Yes, that's what makes the request, and that's what makes things simpler than just making the request yourself and putting the data and building the whole UIs and doing all the things. So let's do something else. There is a component. I'm going to show you. There is a component called, this is a really basic component called product grid. So it's a grid component where you can put products. So let's see the code. It's product grid, and then you can put anything basically inside, but we have also a product component that we can put there. So let's start creating a Klevu product grid. There we go. And once again, let's make a selector like that. So we have an ID for the grid. Then we can get the reference to it like this. So now we have a grid element in HTML. Let's close this so we can see a little bit more code. And we can see already from the example that we could put just the product components inside of the grid. So let's go and check the product component. There it is. It's telling you what kind of thing it is. But this example is not showing you how to put any data in it. We are just modifying the styles. And the reason is that, like explained, there's two ways of setting settings, attributes, and properties into a components. And the difference is that the properties are slightly more complicated data than just strings what the attributes are, because we cannot create, for example, an object data. We cannot set it into the component. So let's say check the Klevu product component.
Well, just for clarity, before we go there, so what you're describing is that in that Klevu product grid web component that you put inside of that Klevu init, it has an ID of grid. That's an attribute.
Yeah, that's an attribute.
And then when you, down at the bottom, document get element by ID, and then you called up that grid right there, if I did something to it, that would be a property.
Yeah, so like here you can see the Copilot is once again adding the code to the screen. This is the way to set an attribute. So this is the same thing. Let's say that we have
putting it in there, right?
Yeah. So we have a attribute that foo that has a value of bar.
Yeah.
The same thing here is by set attribute foo to bar. So this is exactly the same thing.
Okay.
But how do you set the properties to a HTML elements? That's by just using a dot notation.
So dot foo.
Dot foo
equals bar.
Yeah. This means that now we have set
a property.
This is a property.
Got it. Okay, so now I understand the two sides of Yeah.
So let's check the component here in the documentation again.
Okay.
We can see that there is a product. There is a property called a product, in a product. But yes, before we go, the grid doesn't have a product, but we need to create a element. So once again, basic JavaScript, create an element called Klevu product, and say that its name is a product. So now this. So this is the same.
Yeah.
It's the same as writing this here. So this is the same code. Klevu, like type the Klevu product HTML. It's the same thing as creating a document.create element with a Klevu product. So, but we did it dynamically with the JavaScript.
Got it.
So now we have the Klevu product, what I'm seeing here in the documentation, and it's saying that there is it has a property called a product. So a product.product. And it should be a record. The documentation is slightly complicated. It's not telling you writing because it's trying to write out the whole the thing. But it's this record. It's exactly this data model what we are getting from the Klevu backend. That's the thing that you can put it there. So let's try it out. So we have the e.decal. And there we have a result. Records.
Inside of there, we've got records.
Yeah, let's take the first record. And if we click save at this point, still nothing happens because we haven't
put the product anywhere.
Yeah, so the GitHub Copilot is already telling you should put the product into the grid. So let's put that there.
Got it.
The AI is telling us, yes, let's put it there. Whoa.
And then boom.
We have a product in the grid. We can put multiple times the same product in the grid. No, it doesn't work. Now we need to create clones. Oh well. But now we want to get all the products in the grid. So let's make a for loop. Yay. So let's create this kind of the simplistic product loop. So now in every iteration we create this product. Let's put that product into a product. Let's rename this something else because it doesn't work. Let's rename this to record. There we go. So now we are iterating through all the records. We are creating a new element every time called a product, and we set the record into the product. Let's rename this because I like this. Now we know the differences between the products. So there is a product element, and that's it. Now if we click the save, what happens? Yay!
Wow.
Now we have created a custom component from a custom code based on three components. So the Klevu query, product grid, and the product to create the same kind of functionality what we had in the ready-made full application.
Okay. And then at this point, that product I could have looked at for the product element that you created, go look at its properties, go look at its attributes and see what I can do to it.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah.
If I wanted to manipulate each one of those products that are being added to the page dynamically.
Yeah. Like we can already try out here in the visual way that, okay, let's change the component style to line. We can look at it.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm just putting 2 and 2 together now. So that product grid isn't just a box to throw products into. That's the thing that when you resize your browser is giving me 3 columns versus 2 columns versus 1 column on mobile, whatever the case might be.
Yeah, exactly. That's doing.
Okay. So each one is doing its own job.
Yeah.
But it's doing the right job for the thing that you're. Okay. Got it. Because I could have just made a regular div and then just targeted that instead of the grid. But then I'd have to handle all that styling. I'd have to.
Yeah, let's try it out. Let's change it to div. Then, okay, now it's just It's still
I get
working,
it.
but it's not that beautiful.
Yeah.
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 It's not making
yeah, exactly.
elements right size and making sure if everything works.
Yeah. Nice.
There we go.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, let's try it here. So we can set like the variant. Let's try the line, like to make it look like this. So once again, the product element, now that we are using JavaScript to do it, we can use the, actually the attributes can be set like this too. Like I can say type is a line, if I remember right. It should work. Let's try it out. No, it doesn't. Okay, I was wrong. Ignore that. So set attribute type to line. Let's see, does it work? No, was the wrong. Do we have a line? No, because I was using a wrong attribute. It's a variant.
Wow.
There we go. Now everything looks different.
Got it. Got it.
Well, let's see. It should work like this too. Yay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And all of this is just a starting point. There's nothing stopping me from using regular CSS or styling it on top of this to do my own little special thing without having to.
Yeah. There is still a thing that these components do not allow you to modify the code directly, the styles directly in the components, because they're in a thing called a shadow DOM, which prevents your styles from your website to leak into the styles of these components.
Okay.
So let's say that we create plain CSS here. So let's create this here, a style. Let's do something. Let's set the color to red, so all the headings should be red.
Why are you reading my mind? I was thinking, let's make the text red.
Yeah, but nothing changed because it's in a shadow DOM, so it's preventing your styles leaking into these components. But what if I really, really, really want to modify how the code looks like?
Okay.
That means that we need to check what kind of CSS properties and CSS parts there are that I can modify. So first of all, there's CSS properties.
Okay.
None of them now give me ability to change the font, but there is a part. Let's say I can change the product container. Let's do it. So it works like this. So we have a Klevu product in our page. It has a part called products container. And if we save this, now we should see. Nope, we don't see. Let's change the border. This is the typical what every CSS developer does. Yes, we can change the div. We are showing a part of the like we're exposing as a component creator Klevu, we are exposing that you can modify some parts of the components.
Got it.
So we changed the look and feel of it. So if we look into the actual code here in the editor, can you see this?
Yep.
Here you can see this is what the browser tells you. They're really HTML elements. We are not creating a divs like you do in the React or Vue or any other framework. We have a HTML elements in the DOM. And here we can see that the product container, like the parts has been told, it's an attribute that you set into HTML element that gives you the ability to rename style parts of the components. So let's see if there's something else part in this that we could, like here's the part product image.
Oh, got it.
So let's put a green border around the image. Yay, we have the green border around the image.
Okay.
And we could like change the height of the image if we really want to. Now they're really tall, and so on. So you have the
Got it.
flexibility, but we are in the charge of telling you what can be changed.
Okay. And so this is going back to what you were showing with the GitHub. If you wanted to suggest something, you can go in there, fork the repo, add a part where you want it, submit that as a pull request, have Klevu review it. If they okay, got it. Interesting.
Yeah, and that's also the part I was selling, that we are not production ready, is that we don't have all the parts, all the variables what people would like to change.
Looking for
Like,
feedback. Got it.
Yeah, we're looking for feedback. Something else like other thing is the CSS properties. So there are the variables of CSS that we can change.
Okay.
Let's try that. So we can set them like this. So we have a Klevu product selector, Klevu product image aspect ratio. Let's set it 2. Let's see what happens. Let's go and see. Nothing happened. Nope. Yes, because the reasoning is that it doesn't work from there. It needs to be set into the style element of the to set. Like you can set it in the higher level. Oh, actually, no. I forgot it. You can set it, but you need to have a selector for it, which is
root, right?
Root, yes.
Yeah.
So the root
Okay.
selector. So this root is like the global. You can change all the styles.
Yep.
So Klevu, what was it? Let's copy paste this from here, from there. Okay, let's see when I save the code. Oh, still not working. No. Darn it. Let's see if it's cheating. No. Okay. A second way to do it. This is the demo effect. I didn't try this out. Let's try it here. Thank you, GitHub pilot. No, for some reason that's not working right now, and I cannot explain you right now why. But it should work. It should work. Read the documentation, and you will know how to change these styles.
Fair enough.
Yep.
What else? What other components, interesting components do you got in there?
What else is interesting? The most interesting ones are in the components bucket. Okay. So the atoms has the basic things like the buttons and the lists and the drawers kind of things. But the interesting one is the components. There's something that usually interact with Klevu. What could be? Let's create a pagination from this result. So let's check this. So I know this query result property is the one to use when you want to create this pagination. So Klevu, the Klevu pagination, and then let's not use the ID. We can make it more cleaner. So let's see. Oh, it's already telling me what to do. Thank you, GitHub Copilot. So let's take the pagination.
Okay, and it's just going to grab the first one.
Yeah,
okay.
But now it's telling us the wrong thing. We are not going to do that. GitHub Copilot, we're going to use the query result. We're going to set the query result property into the result, which is the full result. Let's see what happens. Did we get pagination? No. Okay. I don't trust that selector for some reason. No, why it's not working? Oh, we have an error code. Okay, query result. Okay, yes. We need to have some values here as a starting point, or it complains you.
Oh.
Let's see the current. So you can use the attributes to set the values like this. Okay, now we.
Okay.
Yeah.
Current is which page we're on.
Yeah, but it replaced. I replaced
all of that with the result. Got it.
Yeah. So we have the initial starting point where we say if we don't set this result, it's just gonna write the 1 to 5.
And it's selecting the current one as 1. Got it.
Yes. But let's say that we change the query limit. There, it has the same kind of attribute as a limit. Let's say 2 products. Now we have more pages right away.
Got it.
And once again, we can listen to events to the pagination. We can say that, okay, the Klevu pagination is changed, then we go into the page and so on. So
the same way we did it with the query. Got it.
Yeah.
So this is what you mean by composable.
Yes, this is what I mean composable. And then there is, we could use a React, but we are running out of time. So I can show you the React example, but it's much more simpler than the HTML version. Actually, I could show it really quickly by cheating, by copy pasting this thing. Yes, we can cheat. We still have a time to see what we can do. Luckily, I created this cheat. So let's remove that. I had the same example here, or slightly different. So now we have an index HTML, which has just a root of the React application, and it's importing the index file that has just an application.
Okay.
And here we have a little bit more. So we have
the same Klevu merchandising that we looked at before.
Yeah. And there is actually, and it should work all right. There we go. So we have the configuration missing. Oh, sorry. I deleted too much. Should add the init at least. Yeah, and you can mix match. Like here, I'm using a web component to init the application. And then inside of React, using more components. So it's really the beauty of the web components. You can mix and match, and it works in a different size of the application. So here is the merchandising React component, which is fully making the full solution. And then we have a grid here that does the same thing. And I have made a little bit more customization. But
you're using the React way of doing it.
Yeah, I'm using the React way, and here we can see from the let's see the Klevu query. Let's make them visible in the screen. Like here you can see that we don't have to get references to elements, that we just listen to the events with the standard way of listening React events. So we get an event and we set the state of the React component, and then we can iterate them in a product red.
Can I interrupt? We just have one question from about 5 minutes ago. I'm going to put it on the screen.
Okay.
So just consider what you were doing 5 minutes ago. This is relevant. Mitchell says, can the API key in the Klevu init container be connected directly to the Magento 2 API?
I really don't. Can you understand the question, Juan?
It sounds like this would be coming from Magento itself. And so while this is being added, you could stick in your Magento 2 API calls inside of there. And the same way that you showed how you dynamically added the products in the last example, you could dynamically add Klevu init as well.
Yes.
So every web component can be added dynamically. And so at that point, you could do whatever you need to do in the Magento API, and then from there trigger adding whatever you need to add.
Yeah, or you could use the Magento 2 API to fetch the products yourself and use our components directly without needing to use the Klevu init or the API key.
Yeah.
That's another way of seeing it.
Because you can mix and match.
Yeah.
Being able to have the code or dynamically adding the code.
Yeah, and because this is plain HTML, you could use the Magento platform to render in the PHP the Klevu unit and the Klevu use the Klevu API keys right there in the server side. You don't have to use the JavaScript to create the functionality. You could just write it over there, and it comes to the front end. Then the JavaScript hijacks and does it this thing.
Got options.
Cool. Well, we are just a minute over time. If anybody has any questions for Juha or Juan, please feel free to look them up on LinkedIn, or you could also email support@klevu.com or visit our GitHub. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Juha. Thank you, Juan. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.